Here we are at Nectan's Meadow. This is our orchard. We call it our orchard. It's more of a small copse with fruit trees in. We planted this probably 25 years ago. Mick went on a pruning course a few years ago, and since then our apple and pear trees have been pruned rather well. He did the pruning course at Rosemore. So this is coming round to our vegetable garden. This is on quite a big slope, you will see, but we've terraced the beds. You can tell by the roof line of the house that the slope is quite a hill up there. We used to use roof tiles around the beds, as many of you will remember who came here over it's probably about 20 years ago that we established the beds. But we did find that the roof tiles encouraged slugs and weeds used to come up in between. We also used to have grass between the beds. We've now gone over to wooden sides and chippings in between, and we found this is loads better. When we first established the beds, a lot of them we started off in the permaculture way, which is very like no-dig. It involves having layers on top of cardboard, so you put the cardboard on top of the grass and then put layers on top of compost and manure, straw, various things. And then for quite a few years we practiced minimal dig. But now for the past few years we've completely gone no dig, and we found this has made a phenomenal difference. We get much less slug damage and much less weeds. So in our veg beds we've still got chard from last year, which is really, really good. It picks up again after the winter. If there's frosts, it sometimes looks like it's been killed, but actually it always comes back again in the spring. So we've got quite a lot there. We've got a few carrots, we've got purple sprouting broccoli in various places, a few spring cabbages, 4 different sorts of kale, but we do have 7 sorts of kale during the winter usually, but 3 of them have had to be cleared. So what we've got left is one called a Sunderland kale, which my daughter-in-law gave us last year, and that's really nice. We've got the red Russian kale that's still going. It's been bolting, but we've let some of the seed heads go to flower, and some we've actually eaten because they're really nice too. We have got Hungry Gap kale, which is interesting because that Ray Sabin, who used to own Southhold Barns, looked after that for the Heritage Seed Library. He was what they call a guardian of the seed, so he'd supply the seed back to the Heritage Seed Library every year. We've got that growing, and we've also got a perennial kale. We had 2 cuttings of that given to us by Steph Hafferty last year. She's Charles Dowding's partner, and it's called Taunton Dean, so it comes from Somerset. We've got one in a pot over there that I'm going to get into one of the veg beds here, and we have another one in the bank next to the polytunnel. However, that one got a lot of slug and snail damage last year, so we're hoping putting the other one in the veggie bed might be better. We should have cuttings for people off that over the next few months. We have sown in these beds 3 sorts of peas over the last few weeks: broad beans, parsnips and carrots, and soon I'll be sowing beetroots and radishes. We've got a lot in the polytunnel, which we'll show you in a bit, and we've got tomatoes in a propagator in the kitchen. We don't sow our courgettes, cucumbers, squash and pumpkins yet. We leave that until about mid to late April and find that really works well, and it staggers the sowing and the planting. Now over the other side of the veg beds we have our compost bins. These bins we put there again about 20 years ago. The 3 wooden ones with the corrugated tops do us very well and have done for years, but we were finding we weren't getting enough compost. So we got the hot bin, which is to the left of them, the tall black thing. That's not been quite as successful as we were hoping. You're meant to be able to get compost out of it within about 8 weeks during the summer, but we found it takes quite a bit longer than that. We have the compost bins up the top in our apiary, which we'll show you later. This bed is all fruit. So we've got blueberries, autumn raspberries, honeyberries and rhubarb. We have some garlic here planted that we should be harvesting in about July. There are also quite a lot of leeks we have left. There's some over there and some in a dumpy bag at the top of the garden, which were overflow. We had a lot of leeks that we sowed last year. We gave a lot away, planted lots in the beds, but we also had an overflow into a dumpy bag of compost up there, and they've done really well. We've also got some autumn sown onions down in a lower bed here, and we'll be planting the main crop out soon. This is one of the peas that we grow, where this black frame is. This one is called Frura Heinrich. Hope I pronounced that right. It was brought to Welcome by Jean Bolkemper. It was from Germany, and she was a Jana trustee and also on the board of the HDRA, which is now called Garden Organic, where the Heritage Seed Library is. She donated the seeds to the Heritage Seed Library, and I managed to get some a few years ago and brought them back to Welcome. They're not very prolific, so I don't often have enough seed to give to other people. And they're also quite a strange pea. They're very wrinkly skinned, but the peas inside are really lovely. So we do 2 other sorts of peas. This one here is Opal Creek. It's a Mange 2 pea. I got the seeds from Neil at Bangers Organic, and they're a Mange 2, as I say, and they have beautiful flowers, purple and pink and white flowers. If they're allowed to, if the pods are allowed to get bigger, they do have rather nice peas inside as well. Then these peas are Pilot. I was given these by my son for my birthday a few years ago. He gave me 10 seeds from the Heritage Seed Library. They're very tall, which is why they have to have that big frame. They are very prolific and really lovely peas. So we always have enough to re-sow and usually enough to give away to people as well. The next bed is our strawberry bed and then our herb bed. Here we have 3 sorts of potatoes. In the first bed, to the right of the wooden stick, is Dido, which is a second early potato, and they're coming up really well. To the left of the stick, the main crop Sarpo Mira have just gone in. We don't usually do main crop because of blight, but these are meant to be blight resistant. In the next bed, to the right of the pea frame, is another second early called Orla, and they're all coming up as well. Here are our chickens. These ones came from the organic chicken farm the Thompsons run at Lopemead, which is between Meadow and Bradworthy. Sort of, there's a road to the right, and they are really good. They are a variety, a commercial variety called Highline. The ones at Welcome Cross, which we've had as well, they're Boven Browns, I think they usually are. One thing to say about these commercial varieties, yes, we tend to get them at about 14 months old from the chicken farms because that's when they get rid of them. They usually lay really well for a couple of years, but they're not very long lived. We've had them live till they're about 5, but that's about it. That's about the longest time they tend to live. Whereas we've had posh chickens from the organic farm at Widden Down. We've had black rocks, one particular black rock that lived for 10 years. And she was still laying about 3 eggs a week the summer before she died. These are good though, and very cheap and very nice chickens. So we're sticking with these for the next few years, I should think. We might get 2 more this year because one of these is getting very old. This is our apiary. We had 6 hives come through the winter. We're not quite sure what we're going to do if they all swarm, as we've only got 3 nucleus boxes. We had people set up to come and get bees from us, but of course that probably won't be able to happen. There's 1 colony up the top of the field, 3 here, and as you can see they are quite active today. This colony is called the Mornings and was from a swarm a couple of years ago that we caught here. It was actually hanging in a tree behind me in the vegetable garden. Then we have 2 colonies over there to the left of the polytunnel. Here we have our big compost bins that Mick made last year. Since we've had these going, we've had masses of compost. In fact, that dumpy bag there is full of our own compost, as is this bag here. The compost in the bag on the top is actually from Tintem Farm, the council waste compost, as is the compost in this dumpy bag here. That's from Tintem Farm. So here's a polytunnel with the new table up outside, which I'm going to put copper tape all the way up the legs and hope we avoid too much slug damage this year. This is for hardening off plants that are going to go in the garden after they've come out of the polytunnel. So here's the polytunnel. We've had salad all winter. The yellow flowers here on the left are Mizuna and Tatsoi. We let them go to flower because the bees absolutely love these yellow flowers. We still have rocket here and more rocket over there. A few lettuces left and some claytonia, and some lettuces at the end there which I planted out in November, and they are really good now. In this middle bed we have cress, which has gone to seed, and again the bees really love the flowers. I'm hoping to be able to save some of that seed this year. More rocket and more cress. At the end we've got a lemon tree and the vine, which is a black Hamburg. Yeah, I have to be pretty vicious with that when pruning in the winter the first year we let it go a bit too mad and we only got very small grapes off it. Lots of bunches, but very small. I should have cut more off. Last year we had some lovely big black grapes, and I've been pretty vicious this winter with it, so hopefully we get a good crop this year too. In this bed we've got a few cabbages. If they're not very big, in a few weeks' time when I need to put the tomatoes in, we'll have to eat them as they are. Then we've got more claytonia. And this is our Cape gooseberry, which has been fruiting all winter. It's really amazing. I've taken some cuttings. There's a fruit there. I've taken some cuttings off it and I've got them in water in the kitchen, but I'm going to do some more straight into compost, so I might have some cuttings for people. I'm also going to move it over to the corner of the polytunnel where those lettuces are later on and cut it right down. This is our potting bench. Most of the plants there are peppers. We've got several sorts of pepper, including Hankham Horn, which is a pepper that our son bred at Hankham, where he used to work. Hankham, or he used to be a partner in the company, Hankham Organics. And I've had 100% germination of those. So I'm going to have some spare pepper plants. There's also 3 aubergines there, and this is one of them in the pot. This is rocket that self-seeded into the path in the polytunnel here, and I saved some of it before we weeded it all out and put it here, and I think it's doing all right. So we should be able to get those in beds probably in the garden in a couple of weeks. Here we have the chard ready to go in once it's hardened off. Some spring onions, main crop onions, and lots of lettuces, again all ready to harden off and to go in. I'll probably put some in the polytunnel here as well. In the propagator we have sunflowers and sweet peas. So I think that's about it. I'll say goodbye from Nectan's Meadow.